Hello, everyone. It's Dr. T. I'm a tech trainer and career coach, and I help professionals transition to tech by leveraging their existing skills and abilities. Today, I'd like to talk to you about the Agile methodology and the Agile frameworks and help you decide which Agile framework is best for your team. As an IT project manager or a senior Scrum Master, you may be called upon to use your Agile expertise to help decide the plans for the team in terms of its Agile structure based on the solution being delivered and the maturity level of your team. Now, we know Agile to be a methodology that provides an approach for project management focused on continuous releases and customer engagement. The Agile frameworks offer the specific practices around planning, execution, and managing that allows for the project to function from an Agile perspective in terms of having that flexibility and the ability to support those team interactions. Now, in 2007, there was a group of software developers that came up with the Agile Manifesto. And this manifesto was focused on creating a unifying message for software developers to use to focus on positive interactions while delivering quality over time. The manifesto was based on 4 key values and 12 key principles. And that was the premise for developing that Agile mindset and that Agile philosophy. But there needed to be a way to implement this. And so Scrum and Kanban are 2 frameworks that were developed to offer the ability to implement the Agile mindset. Now, Scrum and Kanban have some commonalities in the sense that they're focused on continuous delivery, but their approach and the practices is what differs. So I'd like to talk to you about each of them, and let's start out with Scrum. So Scrum is an approach to project management that allows for an iterative and incremental delivery of solutions over time, and the constraint being time boxed intervals. So the work is iterative in the sense that there are a set of practices that the team goes through in order to deliver, and there are inputs and outputs to this process, and this process fits within the time box period. So the time box could be 2, 3, or 4 weeks, depending on how the organization decides to implement Scrum. The work is incremental in that the larger scope is broken down into workable items known as user stories that fit within that time box. The team works diligently to only pull those items in that are ready for work so that that increment can be delivered within that time box frame of 2, 3, or 4 weeks. The teams are cross-functional in that they have the skill set to support one another to deliver that increment within that time frame. Now, one of the major hallmarks of Scrum is that it allows for often and changing priorities. So what we mean by that is you may start a project or need to start a project to get ahead of things and get some underlying elements put into place before the requirements are fully fleshed out. An example of that could be a project that's focused on some healthcare regulation that's coming out. You know the major tenets of the regulations, but you don't know the full end of it, but you need to get started because the effort in and of itself of standing everything up is going to take a while. So you want to get started on this project or pieces of the project. Scrum will allow that because Scrum has those planning phases of sprint planning and project planning from a scope perspective. You can fold in those new requirements into those sessions where the product owner comes in and talks about this new priority that comes up because scope is about changing priorities for Scrum, that your team now has that ability to take that new requirement and funnel it down to a set of workable items and then plan when they'll start working on that requirement. So the next key thing we want to talk about for Scrum is the key metric. That's velocity. And so velocity is about predictability. It is about probability. It's about, okay, so the team worked this set of complex components and increments 2 sprints ago. So we believe if we continue to refine those requirements and have this level of effort required, then the team could possibly get done with these increments at this stage. So it's about the team can probably do this amount of work, and we can predict how quickly they can do the work based on what they did in the past. So velocity is a key metric and a very important part of Scrum, and it comes out of getting those user stories, those work items refined to a point where the teams know when it's ready to work that item and then how that item will be approved. So that definition of done, the definition of ready is all of those elements and components that are required are in place so that the team can pull this item, and then how will the product be or the increment be accepted? What is the acceptance criteria? What will we need to have in place so that that story could be considered done? So velocity is only pulled, only measured when those items are completed and the work item is completed. From a main use case perspective, software development is where you'll find most Scrum teams being stood up, because it allows for implementation, inspection, and then adoption. By that we mean the team is working, they get that work item from ready to done, and the team begins to now put it in place, put that item in place for a demo. The stakeholder and the product owner takes a look at that functionality and says, yes, but, or yes, we like it. The yes, but pieces, we'd like for you to work on these elements. The team adapts and understands what that new priority is and that new requirement is, and then they work to plan for when they'll start working that item. So software is a great opportunity to launch a Scrum team. From a Kanban perspective, the focus is on continuous delivery and a steady flow of work. It's also based on states. By that I mean the work enters into a to-do bucket and it moves across a series of states based on what that solution is, with the goal being done. So let's take a piece of software. It may move from to-do to analysis to testing to demo and then to done. So there's a work item that is supporting a software development initiative, and it comes into the team and to do. The team takes that work item and huddles around it and decides what will it take to implement this solution. It moves to in progress, and then it moves to testing, and then it moves to being demo, where the product owner and other stakeholders come in and take a look at that functionality, and then it moves to done. So those are the states. That's that work in progress, and the WIP is the constraint around delivery. You want to keep only a certain amount of items in each state so that you have that continuous flow and that continuous delivery. Now, from a scope perspective, in order for Kanban to work, the requirements have to be well defined. There's no change, there's no waiting on a decision about prioritization, or there's no ability really to absorb much change within Kanban, because those work items need to move from to do to done, and they need to be well defined. As opposed to Scrum, prioritization for Kanban is based on lead time. So what is it going to take to get this work item ready to get done, and how quickly can we get done? Let's look at our quick wins. Let's get those items out of the way. Let's move things through the cycle quickly. The key metric for Kanban is cycle time. And here's where we look at how fast do we get work items through our workflow, and how quickly are they moving from each state. That key metric tells the team and tells leadership that this team is working without any bottlenecks. They have the right WIP limits to keep that work flowing, and there's no ambiguity or limited ambiguity in getting the work done. So cycle time is a key metric for Kanban. The main use cases for Kanban is operations. So IT support teams and marketing, business operations teams benefit well from Kanban. The work is well defined. It's a steady flow. It's coming in. It helps support operations of the organization, and the teams are mature enough that they can pull that work and get it through the cycles without any interruptions or any bottlenecks. So when looking at which process works best for your team, I recommend that Scrum be used for an initial rollout of Agile within an organization, for software development type projects that are heavily based on that customer feedback in terms of stopping to have a demo, to take the insight from the demo, to make any improvements to the solution, or to make any improvements to how the work is being done from a team functioning perspective. If your team is very mature and has that exposure and that understanding of Agile and being flexible and being able to address the work quickly and keeping that steady flow and understanding the work very well, I recommend the Kanban approach. Scrum is suited for projects with rapidly changing and uncertain requirements. Kanban is more suited for projects with well-defined requirements and that steady flow of work. Both can be effective, but the choice will be based on the specific needs and characteristics of the project and the team. I will say that I have had experience maturing my team to Kanban, and knowing that I only had a limited time with the team. And so the goal was to remove my role over time as the team became more mature. By that, we gave ourselves 6 cycles, so 6 time boxes, so 6 sprints. The sprints were 3 weeks, and so we gave the team 18 weeks to mature to the level that they would move to Kanban. We supported them throughout that 18-week with the necessary ad hoc training or the necessary support in understanding things like user story sizing or writing an effective user story. We did all of that training along the way to help them mature to a level that they could just start pulling work items. As the work matured and as the solution matured, they got to a point where they could just keep that continuous flow. They knew what was too much work. They knew how to set their WIP limits within each state, and they were successful. So I hope this video gave you that understanding and that foundational approach to looking at your teams, looking at the scope of work, and deciding when and where to use Scrum or Kanban. If you have any other questions or suggestions, leave them in the comments. Thanks for your time, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.